since I've been up in this area for many, many years, since I was 7 years old. And so I call this Second Wind Update and Revelation. So you see these pictures of these bearded men by the log cabin. This is from the LA magazine from years ago, but it gives the history of Altadena. And I discovered the abolitionist John Brown's son, Owen Brown, is buried in Altadena near a certain hilltop area. He died in Altadena, Pasadena in 1889. So I've always wondered what drove my father to move our family from Los Angeles to Altadena. And little did I know, I'm learning every day how my parents were both so smart, way beyond my imagination. So Altadena has a history. Abolitionist John Brown is buried there. Here's a picture, 1824 to 1889. These are pictures of Pasadena from the Historical Museum that I don't ever recall any citation or mention of Owen Brown and the legacy up in Altadena. For some, California is a post-Rancho area. It seemed like a place without a past, and it certainly was for me. Even when I studied the Civil War and studied history, there never seemed to be a link. Little did I know that John Brown's son is buried in Altadena, the son of a notorious anti-slave activist. And it's been a pilgrimage area for hikers. So when somebody tells you to go take a hike, you might want to say thank you. So I want to share this little audio that I discovered that I want to include as part of my story. And it's a titled Research Take Two. And it was published in 2017. So it's current, and we'll listen to that together as I continue.
The footage is grainy and faded with time. A man plays with his young son and daughter on a concrete patio. He is the late Charles White, one of America's most renowned African-American artists. The kids race from their dad and up a steep incline into the dry scrub oak of Little Round Top Hill in Altadena. Then Charles White's voice explains that there's something significant nearby.
In back of our house, over the rim of the hill, is a grave where one of John Brown's sons is buried.
At the top of the ridge, the children scramble toward an oddly shaped marker, the weathered gravestone of Owen Brown, son of John Brown the Liberator, the headstone reads.
John Brown was a hero to my father in terms of his abolitionist work.
This is Charles White's son, Ian.
My father really only portrayed two Anglo-Americans, Abraham Lincoln and John Brown.
For Ian, the film is a memento, not just of time, but also of place. In 2002, Owen Brown's gravestone disappeared from the hilltop above Ian White's home.
The stone had vanished. I was just surprised that someone felt the need to remove Owen Brown's grave marker.
John Brown, father of Owen, was executed in 1859 for attacking and occupying a federal armory at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Brown was a fervent foe of slavery, and he hoped his takeover of the armory would trigger a slave rebellion. It didn't, but Brown was hailed as an abolitionist hero for his speech before the court that condemned him to die.
If it is deemed necessary that I should forfeit my life for the furtherance of the ends of justice and mingle my blood with the blood of millions in this slave country, I submit. So let it be done.
He wasn't crazy. He was just far, far, far ahead of his time.
Alice McCoy is John Brown's great-great-great-granddaughter.
He believed in equality for everyone. Women, men, different colors. He thought everybody was equal, and that was such a radical thought in his era.
But Brown also believed in violence as a means to an end, and in the years before Harper's Ferry, he organized a guerrilla militia responsible for the slaughter of 5 unarmed pro-slavers in Kansas.
He's seen as a terrorist, he's seen as a murderer, he's seen as a hero, he's seen as a saint. He kind of takes the whole circumference on everything you can imagine a person being described as.
After his father's execution, and after the Civil War, Owen followed his sister Ruth west to Pasadena. As the last survivor of Harper's Ferry, Owen was an instant celebrity in a town with a surprisingly robust population of former abolitionists. He found notoriety disconcerting, so he headed for the nearby hills. Paul Ayers is an Altadena-based attorney and trail access advocate.
Everything he did after Harper's Ferry was to escape from the violence of Harper's Ferry. All he wanted to do was be out in the wilderness.
Ayers took me to the plateaus in Altadena where Owen Brown made his home, and filled me in on a weird story of vandalism, idealism, dirt bikers, and the theft of a gravestone.
The Owen Brown gravesite, it's a natural motorcycle jump. And so in the 70s, with the advent of cheap, good mountain bikes, these young men decided it'd be fun to take the stone out. People started rolling it down the hill.
Ian White still lives near the gravesite. He remembers.
We had a wonderful neighbor. He put Owen Brown's grave marker into a concrete base and put a hook on it. And he figured the only way it would ever be removed would be by helicopter.
But Ian's good-hearted neighbor was wrong. Sometime in July 2002, the stone vanished from Owen's grave. Newspaper accounts mentioned Michael Keechey, the new owner of the property. He'd previously attempted to cut off access to the gravesite by seeking to block off a historically public trail. Paul Ayers sued to keep Owen's burial site open to the public. Why would he have wanted the stone removed?
Because he thought that if he removed that, people would stop wanting to come up there. He thought that was the draw.
The mystery went unresolved. The man who owns Owen Brown's burial site has consistently denied having anything to do with the disappearance of the Owen Brown gravestone. A few years later, Paul Ayers won a suit preserving public access to the now unmarked Owen Brown gravesite. And that's where the story seemed to end, with history both preserved and lost. Or so Ian White thought, until 2012, a decade after Owen Stone disappeared, when White went for a walk with his son. And you were there, huh?
Yeah, I was over there.
I noticed in a ravine a square of concrete, but upon uncovering it, we found a rope that went back up the ravine. I said, Gordon, that's the stone. So I immediately called a couple of friends.
Actually, it was an email.
To try to move this 400-pound monster. It took all we had, I must admit.
We tied it to the appliance dolly. We took it down to Ian's house and put it in the backyard.
You are still in possession of the stone.
Yes, the stone is at an undisclosed location.
And as a precondition of me actually physically seeing the stone, I have agreed to not disclose your undisclosed location today.
No, you've agreed to be blindfolded and driven around for 10 minutes, and then we will find it. Oh, my back!
A car ride later, it's there before me. Owen's marker, peacefully nesting in a tree-lined garden, miles away from the rough plateau where Owen's body is buried. But now why has it not been replaced? It's been 5 years.
We'd like to keep it safe until we know it's going to be put back in its rightful spot and stay there and not disappear. We're just kind of waiting.
Owen's waiting too, in a currently unmarked spot on Little Round Top Hill, accessible only on foot after a steep climb.
So this is the gravesite right here.
Yeah, without the stone, you'd never know he was here. I didn't realize until I got here that I wish I'd brought something to place here. You can get caught up in it being a quest, but it's an actual place where a man will be here forever. We pause a moment to stare at the San Gabriel Mountains, then start the long climb down. For take 2, I'm R.H. Green.
Okay. Well, that's my little bit of history. I hope you enjoy it. You can go take a hike if you'd like, since folks are out and about, but we're having a heat wave, so make sure you stay hydrated. And for now, this is Phyllis with her brief but really fun Second Wind episode about the history of Altadena. I didn't know. I'd heard Pancha Barnes was from Altadena too, and she wanted to protect the hills. So as I dig a little deeper, I'm learning a lot more about the research and the history of this area where I grew up. And I recall my brother was so upset and angry about leaving his friends in the neighborhood in Los Angeles, but Altadena for me has turned out to be quite a gold mine of resources. So until